Hope everyone is ready. Let's get started. Now, moving on to Britain's first black female Member of Parliament, Diane Abbott. By the time Diane had been elected in 1987, she was already used to being in institutions where there was no one like herself. Starting as early as being the only black girl in her grammar school and one of the 3 black students attending Newham College in Cambridge and one of the only black women seniors working for the government home office, Diane remained undiscouraged. But before we go any further, let me take you back to 1953 and September 27th of that year. This was the day Diane Julie Abbott would enter the world, born to Jamaican parents in Paddington, an area in central London. Her father was a welder and her mother was a nurse. Young Diane would attend Harrow County School for Girls, and according to encyclopedia.com, Diane displayed a very open and honest personality from a young age. After feeling frustrated with an unchallenging English class, Abbott informed her teacher that she would study the assigned books on her own instead, and unsurprisingly went on to achieve an A with little involvement from her teacher. Abbott would go on to study history at the Newham College in Cambridge, but she stated in an interview with the Times her teachers from her school were not so encouraging of her applying to Cambridge, stating her history teacher had tried to deter Abbott from applying, claiming it would give her ambitions outside of her social station. However, Abbott remained determined nonetheless. Abbott said from a young age she had an interest in reading novels, and in those novels the characters all went to Oxford and Cambridge, and she was inspired to want to attend those institutes also. Her fascination grew further when on a school trip to Cambridge College she was amazed by all the students in their striped Cambridge scarves, comparing them to princes and princesses. Right there and then her mind was made up, and she knew that was where she belonged. Abbott was the first in her family to complete higher education past the age of 14 and completed 4 A-levels, which were an advanced level qualification in the UK. She studied art, religious education, English and history. Even though the requirement was only 3 subjects, she had a passion for learning and chose to study 4. However, during her studies, she found that there was a lack of subject matter around black history, and a wanted interest grew to know more in this area. After university, Abbott took a job at the National Council for Civil Liberties. Unsurprisingly, she was the first black employee. In an interview with the Times, Diane stated that she found it very uneasy being in a setting full of people falling over backwards to be nice to her because she was black. Going on further to say it also gave her a lasting distaste for the race relations industry and hypocrisy of making a living out of race. Next, Abbott tried the television industry, working as a researcher for Thames Television and then a reporter for TV AM. During this time, she was a member of the Association for Cinematography, Television and Allied Technicians, and in 1985 the union offered her a job as equality officer. Abbott later moved into governmental public relations, working as press and public relations officer for the Greater London Council, and later as a principal press officer for Lambeth Borough Council. Abbott's career in politics began in 1982 when she was elected to Westminster City Council, serving for 4 years until 1986. In between that time, in 1983, she was active in the Labour Party Black Sections movement, campaigning for greater African Caribbean and Asian political representation. Abbott would become the first black woman to become a Member of Parliament in 1987. Now thrusted into a position where more eyes were on her, she found that the British press, who are known for its ruthlessness, was tracking her every move, and it did not take much time before she became the centre of news coverage. In the same interview with the Times, Abbott stated, "For the first 6 months it was very overwhelming. What particularly surprised her," Abbott explained, was the fact that even her party colleagues had read the papers and believed the allegations. Abbott recalled a time when she was in the tea room and the Scottish MP said, "You don't belong here," in a way that made her feel taken back by the aggression. Diane Abbott stood for equality, but that same treatment was not shown to her. Diane would later go on to give birth to her son in October 1991 21 but received no maternity leave and had to attend Parliament and vote throughout her pregnancy, giving birth and returning to work 8 days later. As we all know, as part of being a public figure, you are subject to being the brunt of the public's frustration, but the abuse Abbott received was different. She wrote about receiving racial and sexist abuse online every day. An Amnesty International report found that Abbott was the subject of almost half of all the abusive tweets about female MPs on Twitter during a 2017 election campaign, receiving 10 times more abuse than any other MP. Now, some may feel discouraged and want to quit, but not Abbott. She knew why she had entered into politics, and she was not going to be pushed out by anyone. Earlier in 2008, Abbott gave a speech on civil liberties in a debate on the counter-terrorism bill. Her speech would go on to win the Spectator magazine's Parliament Speech of the Year award and gain further recognition at the 2008 Human Rights Award. You can find a clip to her speech in the description in this video. Diane gave a speech in the House of Commons, an institute responsible for making laws and checking the work of the government. Her speech was on the Caribbean and it was included in Margaret Buxby's 2019 anthology called New Daughters of Africa. Margaret Yvonne Buxby was Britain's youngest and first black female book publisher. Abbott is also the founder of the London Schools and the Black Child's Initiative, which aims to raise educational achievement levels amongst black children. In 2020, Abbott was invited to participate in Strictly Come Dancing, a celebrity-themed dance competition, but refused. Speaking on BBC Radio 4's Today programme, she stated that she refused the invitation and instead said that she would continue to do what she has done all her life, speaking up for human rights, civil liberties, women's rights, and representing the people of the community. In September 2020, an biography of Diane was released, titled Diane Abbott, Authorized Biography. And if you ever visited the Cambridge College and go to the college library, you will find a Black Cantab exhibition which features 14 photographs of black Cambridge history makers, including Diane Abbott. To sum this up, I have to say I admire her endurance and tenacity after years of having to put up with so much. More light needs to be shone on what she has achieved and stood for. So I hope you share this amongst your family and friends. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below and come back tomorrow for the next part in our series. Please subscribe to be in the know when the video drops, and in the meantime you can check out one of our other videos.